My name is Spencer Reed. I'm 28 years old, a logistics specialist focused on automated warehousing who thought my biggest headaches were supply chain bottlenecks and vendor delays. I was dead wrong. It hit on a regular Tuesday evening. I just dragged myself back to my Buckhead apartment after a late shift at Reed Logistics Group, juggling takeout and my keys when something caught my eye on the doorstep, a black leather notebook lying there like it had been dropped in a hurry. I picked it up without a second thought, figuring it was mine or a neighbor's. But as I flipped it open to the last page, my stomach dropped. There, in my brother's sharp handwriting, was a list. Not just notes, but a calculated plan. Convince Mom to pull the $5 million investment from Spencer's startup. It's underwhelming anyway. Those automated warehouse contracts, disappointing at best. I only pretend to back him because Mom pushes it. If partners knew how insecure he really is, they'd bail fast. It went on detailing how he'd frame me as the weak link, the one dragging down the family business, all to secure his spot as the sole heir to Reed Logistics. I stood frozen in the hallway rereading it. This wasn't a random rant. It was deliberate, like a script he'd been perfecting for years, whispering it to Mom behind my back. My pulse raced, but beneath the betrayal, a sharp clarity sparked. By the time I shut the notebook, I'd decided. Tomorrow, I'd vanish from the role he'd scripted for me, the dependent little brother always in his shadow, and I'd do it with a move he wouldn't see coming. If you've ever trusted family like I trusted my brother, you'll stick around for what came next. This is where bonds turn toxic. If you've ever been undermined by your own family, hit like and subscribe to see how I stood up for myself, and drop a comment below if you've got your own sibling drama. The next morning, I woke up in my Buckhead apartment with the black leather notebook still clutched in my hand from the night before. I set it on the kitchen counter, brewed a pot of strong black coffee, and sat down under the harsh fluorescent light. My head throbbed, but I forced myself to flip it open again, starting from the beginning this time. Page after page revealed my brother's meticulous notes, not just the final plan, but a timeline stretching back years. He'd documented moments from our childhood in Atlanta, like how I used to mimic his every move, the way he tied his shoes, his confident stride during high school football games, even his habit of cracking knuckles before meetings. But in his words, it wasn't admiration. It was pathetic imitation. Spencer's always been the copycat. One entry read, "Trying to ride my coattails." Those early warehouse gigs he got just because Mom pulled strings at the family firm. It stung, recalling summers spent shadowing him at Reed Logistics Group, where he'd been the star intern at UPS while I stacked boxes in the back. Mom had always beamed at his reports, praising his potential to expand the company, while I lingered as the quiet backup, the one who'd eventually handle the grunt work. As I turned the pages, the entries grew more recent and venomous. He detailed my startup launch 2 years ago, the automated warehousing system I'd built from scratch, with Mom's initial $5 million investment from the family fund. Spencer's tech is underwhelming at best. He wrote, "Disappointing contracts that barely break even." I clap and say the right things at family dinners, but only because Mom expects it. Behind closed doors, I convince her he's too insecure to lead, clients would drop him if they saw the real him. And there it was, the core scheme, a step-by-step strategy to persuade Mom to redirect the funds entirely to his division, eliminating me as a co-heir. Reed Logistics needs one leader, not a divided house, the note concluded. Cut his capital, watch his startup fold, and consolidate under me. I paused, sipping the bitter coffee, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks. The words weren't just insults. They were a blueprint for sabotage, rehearsed and refined. Growing up in our Midtown home, I'd idolized him, 2 years older, always the golden child with the internships that turned into executive roles. Mom's stories at the dinner table revolved around his deals with major shippers, while my interest in automation was dismissed as a hobby. When I pitched my startup, he was the first I told. He hugged me, said, "Proud of you, bro." But now I saw the cracks those family gatherings where he'd steer conversations from my progress to his multi-million-dollar contracts, laughing it off as big brother advice. The anger simmered, but I didn't let it boil over into tears. Instead, it sharpened into focus. I grabbed a notepad and jotted a checklist, one reread to confirm every detail. 2, stop pretending I hadn't seen this. 3, redefine who I am without his shadow looming. 4, clear out my space from his office, that corner he'd generously lent me when I started keeping me under his thumb in the family building. It was time to set boundaries, to stop relying on the scraps he doled out. I showered quickly, the hot water washing away the initial shock, then dressed in my usual business casual khakis and a button-down, nothing flashy. The mirror reflected a face more resolved than broken. As I grabbed my keys and headed to the door, memories flooded back unbidden. Thanksgiving dinners where Mom gushed over Dalton's latest acquisition, a new fleet for Reed Logistics, while my updates on sensor tech for warehouses got polite nods. He'd interrupt with stories of his negotiations turning the spotlight back, and I'd laugh along, forgiving it as sibling rivalry. But this notebook proved it was deeper contempt masked as kinship. By the time I stepped into the elevator, the plan solidified. I wasn't just leaving my apartment, I was exiting the narrative he'd crafted for me. The drive to the Midtown headquarters felt different, the Atlanta skyline blurring past as strategy took hold. That same afternoon, I pulled into the parking deck of Reed Logistics Group in Midtown Atlanta. The familiar smell of diesel and cardboard hit me the second I stepped out of the car, a scent I'd known since I was old enough to ride in the passenger seat of Dad's old Freightliner before he passed. I swiped my access card at the side entrance, took the freight elevator to the 5th floor, and walked straight to the corner my brother had let me use for the last 3 years. It wasn't an office, just a narrow desk shoved against the window, a filing cabinet, and a second monitor wired to the main network. Everything screamed temporary, like I'd been squatting in his territory the whole time. I started with the drawers. Folder by folder, I pulled out the prototypes for the automated racking system, the client pitch decks I'd spent nights refining, the signed NDAs from pilots we'd run in Savannah and Charleston. Each one went into my backpack. The laptop closed with a soft click. I wiped the drive, logged out for good, and left the company keycard on the desk next to a framed photo from last year's holiday party. Mom, my brother, Chelsea, and me smiling like nothing was wrong. He'd pointed at that picture once and laughed. "Look at you, little bro, couldn't even afford that suit without the family discount." No one stopped me. A couple of warehouse leads waved from the hallway, but the executive floor was quiet. My brother was probably in client calls, closing another 7-figure routing deal while I erased myself from the background. When the desk was bare, I grabbed the last thing, the oversized desk calendar he insisted everyone still used. A thick ivory envelope was clipped to the date, 12 days out. I slid it free. Southeast Supply Chain and Logistics Leadership Summit. Atlanta Convention Center. 800 attendees. FedEx C-Suite, Amazon Last Mile directors, every venture fund that mattered south of D.C. My brother's name was printed in bold beneath the chairman title he'd curated the entire program this year. I stood there holding the invitation heavier than it should have been. This wasn't just another industry mixer. It was his stage, his contacts, his reputation on full display. And for the first time, a possibility cracked open. What if I stepped onto that same stage not as the quiet younger Reed who tagged along, but as the guy with the working prototype every shipper in the room actually needed? The idea hit clean and sharp. I didn't need his permission to be there. I just needed to be undeniable. I slipped the envelope into my backpack, slung it over my shoulder, and walked out without looking back. By the time I reached the parking deck, I'd already decided who I was calling next. Later that day, I steered toward Centennial Olympic Park to meet Wyatt. I found Wyatt Burke already at a corner table outside the cafe, his MacBook open to a pitch deck, and a half-empty cold brew sweating beside it. He looked up, grinned the same crooked grin from Georgia Tech dorm days, then clocked my face and killed the smile. "Rough morning?" he asked. I slid into the chair across from him, dropped my backpack, and pushed the black notebook across the table without a word. He raised an eyebrow, flipped it open, and started reading. 10 seconds and his jaw tightened. 30 seconds in, he muttered, "Jesus." By the time he reached the last page, the confusion had turned into something colder. "I always knew your brother was competitive," Wyatt said, closing the cover like it burned. "But this is calculated. This is next level." I explained how it had ended up on my doorstep, meant for Mom's eyes only. Wyatt leaned back, ran a hand through his hair, and let out a low whistle. He'd seen dirty plays before. His old mentor at the fund had once tanked Wyatt's promotion by feeding fake numbers to the partners. Same playbook, different stakes. He tapped the invitation sticking out of my bag. "So the summit in 12 days is his Super Bowl." "Exactly." Wyatt's eyes narrowed, investor mode kicking in. "Then we turn it into yours? My fund is a platinum sponsor this year. We get one wildcard keynote slot. I can nominate whoever I want." He spun the laptop toward me. "We pitch you as the guy solving the exact problem every shipper in that room loses sleep over: labor shortages and 40% higher dwell times. For the next 2 hours, we built the case. We listed every live pilot I'd run. Savannah saved the client $3.8 million last year alone. Every patent pending on sensor fusion. Every letter of intent from regional 3PLs waiting on Series A to scale." Wyatt pulled comps from his deal folder: similar warehouse automation companies, trading at 15 times revenue. He typed the email draft on the spot subject line: "Wildcard keynote recommendation, the future of zero-touch fulfillment," and CC'd the 2 partners who owed him favors. Then we moved to the talk itself. 10 minutes on hard metrics, 5 minutes on vision, and a final 3-minute closer titled, "When Family Support Isn't Support." We rehearsed it right there on the patio, Wyatt playing skeptical audience, throwing objections I'd heard my whole life. "What if investors think you're too small to trust?" I'm not asking for trust. I'm showing live data from warehouses moving 20,000 pallets a day. "What about your last name? People know Reed Logistics. Let them. I'm not hiding it. I'm just done letting it define me." By the time the sun dropped behind the skyline, the email was sent, the slides were outlined, and the closing line was locked. "Real support lifts everyone. Anything less is just dead weight." Wyatt hit send on the final version, leaned back, and raised his cup. 12 days. "You ready to stop being the spare part?" I clinked my water against his coffee. Born ready. The countdown started that night. The next 12 days disappeared in a blur of late nights and dry runs. I rehearsed the talk in my empty living room until the words felt like muscle memory, trimming every slide until the data did the heavy lifting. Wyatt forwarded the official confirmation 48 hours after we hit send: "Wildcard keynote, Spencer Reed. Approved." The slot was mine. Then the text came from my brother late on a Thursday. "Heard you're speaking. Interesting choice. Don't screw this up. Keep it light. Stick to the tech, and for God's sake, don't turn it into a therapy session." I stared at the screen, thumb hovering, then typed back a single line: "I'll talk about what actually moves pallets. See you there." The night of the summit arrived sticky and hot, classic Georgia September, the kind that makes dress shirts cling the second you step outside. I parked under the convention center, grabbed my badge at registration, and clipped it around my neck. The hall already buzzed 800 name tags, sponsors like Walmart Supply Chain and Old Dominion, flashing on every banner, venture funds circling like sharks. I spotted my brother near the main entrance, navy suit, sharp, laughing loud, with a cluster of execs from UPS and Ryder. Mom stood beside him in a crisp blazer, nodding along. Chelsea hovered a step behind, clutching a champagne flute, eyes scanning the room until they landed on me. For a split second, her expression flickered, something between recognition and unease. Then she looked away. He saw me a moment later and broke from the group, striding over with that easy grin he used on clients. "Big night for you, huh?" he said, voice low enough that only I could hear. Lot of important people here. Just remember these sponsors. They're here because of my relationships, not some last-minute wildcard. I met his eyes calm. Big night for both of us. I'm just going to talk about my process. He leaned in closer, smile still locked in place. Don't overcomplicate things, Spencer. You're on that stage because I allowed it. Don't make me regret signing off. I didn't answer. Just gave a short nod and walked past him toward the green room, the humid air thick in my lungs and adrenaline starting to spike. Backstage, the production manager handed me a wireless mic pack and counted down the minutes until my slot. Showtime. The house lights dimmed. A single spotlight hit the stage and the MC's voice boomed through the hall. Please welcome our wildcard keynote Spencer Reed on transforming warehousing in the age of automation. I walked out to polite applause that quickly swelled as 800 logistics pros recognized the last name. I didn't smile, didn't wave. Just clicked to the first slide live footage of a fully autonomous rack system moving 40,000 pallets a day. The room went quiet except for the low hum of recognition. 10 minutes flew hard numbers, client savings patents filed. Heads nodded. Phones came out to snap deck shots. Then I clicked to the final section. Black background, white text, when support isn't support. I took a breath. Every breakthrough I just showed you almost didn't happen. I said, voice steady over the speakers. Because for years I was told in writing that my contracts were disappointing, that my ideas were underwhelming, that the only reason anyone listened to me was family obligation. I have the proof right here. I held up the black leather notebook for 2 seconds, just long enough for the front rows to register what it was, then set it on the podium. Gasps rippled. Someone in the third row whispered loud enough for the mic to catch, "That's Dalton Reed's planner." I kept going. I was raised to believe family lifts you up. Instead, I learned some family clips your wings so you never fly higher than they're comfortable with. That was the moment my brother moved. I saw him shove out of his chair near the front, Mom right behind him. Security started forward but hesitated. Reed was on the host committee. He hit the stage steps 2 at a time. "This is unprofessional, Spencer." His voice cracked over the PA before a tech killed his clip-on mic. "Turn that off." "This isn't the place." Mom reached the podium next, face flushed. "Stop twisting everything, you're hurting the family name." The room had gone dead silent. 800 people leaning forward. I stayed at the mic. "I'm not twisting anything. I'm reading what was written about me for years." My brother lunged for the notebook. In the struggle, the open page flashed on the overhead projector for half a second, handwritten lines about removing me as heir so the company would have one clear leader. He realized it too late. "You stole my spotlight for years," he shouted. Forgetting the mic was live again. "I had to make plans to get you out. Someone had to protect the legacy." Mom grabbed his arm, horrified, but the damage was done. A collective intake of breath swept the hall. Then slowly at first, someone near the back started clapping. Another joined. Within seconds, the entire room was on its feet, applause thundering for the first time all night, aimed squarely at me. Security finally moved in, guiding my brother and Mom off stage. Chelsea stood frozen in the aisle, champagne flute forgotten in her hand, watching her husband unravel in real time. I looked out at the crowd, nodded once, and said the only thing left. "Thank you for seeing the work and the truth." The ovation followed me all the way off stage. I barely made it off the stage steps before the first CEO grabbed my arm. "Spencer, that pilot in Charleston, can we get a demo next week?" Another handed me a card, VP of Operations at XPO. Within minutes, I was surrounded, business cards piling up, 3 verbal offers for joint ventures before I even reached the green room. My phone exploded. Wyatt fought through the crowd, pulled me into a bear hug. "You were incredible," he yelled over the noise. Texts poured in from college friends I hadn't spoken to in years. "You did right, proud of you, stand your ground." By the time I sat down backstage, my inbox had 47 new messages. Subject lines like solo potential. Let's talk. We were wrong about Reed Logistics Series A term sheet attached. One partner from Wyatt's fund wrote, withdrawing the $12 million from Reed Logistics effective Monday. We back founders, not family politics. Then Mom's text came through. Dalton is sobbing in the car. You did this on purpose. You humiliated him in front of the entire industry. I heard the plan, yes, but I thought it was just venting. You've destroyed your brother. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed back. I told the truth. I'm done pretending it didn't exist. No reply. 2 days later, Chelsea filed for divorce in Fulton County. Georgia is a 50-50 state. Everything they built together split clean down the middle. She kept the Buckhead house. He kept the company if the company survived. A week after the summit, Mom changed her number and removed me from the family chat. Her last message forwarded by a cousin. You failed us the day you decided blood didn't matter. LinkedIn went nuclear. Blind items popped up overnight. Heard a major Southeast logistics player just lost $12 million and half its exec team in one night. Brother versus brother showdown at industry conference. Anyone catch the keynote? Comments flooded industry groups. Respect to Spencer Reed for going independent. Reed Logistics stock would tank if it were public. My calendar filled faster than I could accept. 3 competing offers landed the same afternoon, base salaries north of $300,000, equity packages, signing bonuses. One came from a Charlotte-based 3PL ready to make me head of innovation and relocate tomorrow. I accepted the Charlotte offer that night. 10 days after the summit, my brother texted from a new number. We need to talk. Coffee, please. 2 weeks later, I walked into the same Midtown coffee shop where Wyatt and I had planned everything. My brother was already at the back table, tie-loosened eyes, red-rimmed, looking 10 years older than 32. He stood when he saw me, started to reach out, then thought better of it. Thanks for coming, he said, voice hoarse. We lost the JB Hunt contract yesterday. Mom hasn't stopped crying. Chelsea served me papers this morning. She says what happened at the summit was the final proof I'd been lying for years. I sat down across from him. I'm not happy any of that is happening to you. He gave a bitter laugh. Right. You're just collateral damage. He rubbed his temples. Look, I was angry. Okay, every time Mom brought up your startup, how proud she was of the numbers you were pulling, I felt like I was disappearing. I thought if I could just get you out of the picture, everything would go back to normal. That's the thing, I said. It was never venting. You documented it for years. You built a whole strategy around making me fail. He looked away, jaw tight. I was protecting what Dad left us. You were protecting your version of it. Not mine. Silence stretched between us. Then he leaned forward, desperation creeping in. Spencer, please. Call the fund. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. One conversation and they'll come back. We can fix this. You're still family. I stood up. No, I said. I'm done fixing things for people who never fixed anything for me. I'm cutting all ties. No more holidays. No more emergency calls. No more pretending we're brothers. As far as I'm concerned, that relationship ended the day you decided I was the problem. His face crumpled. You can't just erase blood. I'm not erasing blood. I'm choosing peace. I walked out without looking back. That afternoon, I signed the offer in Charlotte. 2 days later, I legally dropped Reed from my name and took Mom's maiden name instead, Hayes. New city, new title, new life. Some families lift you higher. Others spend years trying to bury you so they can stay on top. When you finally see it for what it is, the only healthy move is to walk away and never apologize for growing in a different direction. Blood doesn't get a free pass to poison you. Self-worth does. Thanks for watching the whole story. If you've ever had to cut a toxic family member loose, drop your experience below. I read every comment. Like and subscribe. If this helped you, see you're not alone. See you in the next one.